We want to take this opportunity to thank you for viewing this video presentation, which should last approximately 50 minutes. This presentation is designed to help current VPHIB administrators gain a working knowledge of VAv3. We will also place some additional emphasis on items that are covered in the transition checklist from version 2 to VAv3. By doing this, our goal is to provide you with enough information to help guide you through what needs to be set up so that this transition will go as smooth as possible. Now, let's look at the actual application. Double-click the VAv3 Online Sign-In icon or use the VAv3 Online Sign-In bookmark to get the sign-in screen to come up. If these are not available, please refer to the Setup and Transition video on how these are created. If prompted when logging in, enter in Virginia in the Organization ID field. It is important to note that if the Organization ID of Virginia is included in the web address, then this field will not appear on the sign-in screen. Next, enter in the username and password information you obtained from the Office of EMS. If you do not have this, please contact us at the Office of EMS to obtain your access information. Once the login information has been entered in, click the Sign In button to log into the system like this. When the release form or privacy statement comes up, you will notice that the EMS license expiration date also appears in this window. All users that you enter in certification information for when setting up their accounts will see this. Where this is set will be covered later when we discuss user account setup. Select Yes to continue to the application. Now you're looking at the home screen. The Announcements section will eventually be customizable once Report Writer and the Analytics modules have been completed and added to the application. You will be able to show things like call volumes, or you can choose to leave it as is. It's entirely up to you. For now, the basic home page is shown. To return to the home screen, click on the Image Trend logo shown here in the upper left corner of the window. With the exception of the instant form, the application will return to this screen when the logo is clicked. As we go through this presentation, I would like to emphasize something. While some of the information that can be entered in is not required, it still may be good information to collect for your own internal reporting purposes. Do not discount something just because the state does not require it. You could find that including more information may, in the long run, provide you with additional insights regarding personnel, agency performance, or other items. The goal with any software application is to eventually be able to report on any and all information entered in or collected. If there is any question as to something being required or not, please refer to the version 3 data dictionary included in the transition package. Now, let's look at the choices available under each menu option. When we click on the agency name, the menu expands to show the choices available to the user. When we click the agency name again, the menu window closes. The other menu options, such as Incidents, Resources, and the others, function in the same way. Please be aware that the security permissions assigned to the user's account will determine what menu options are available and how they each function. It should also be noted that these options can be adjusted by the VAv3 administrator once the account has been created. How to accomplish this will be shown later. The options that we'll be reviewing during this video presentation will be the standard ones assigned to the EMS Agency Administrator group. Looking at the options under the agency name, in the area under Recently Viewed Agencies, there are two choices. The first one will list any agencies that the user has recently been logged into. The second choice is to select any other agency the account is associated with. If we select the recently viewed agency as shown, the user is automatically switched to that agency. Note that the name shown now reflects the other agency. Just repeat the process to switch back or to switch to another agency. If the user is associated with additional agencies not shown, simply select View More Agencies. From the Agency Selector window, the user simply selects whichever agency they need to work in, and the application will switch to the one chosen. In regards to the association of accounts, it is important to note the following. The section for recently viewed agencies will only show if the user's account is associated with other agencies. The association of accounts must be done by system administrators at the Office of EMS. Users will no longer need separate accounts in order for OEMS to perform the association. Due to this, users will no longer be able to request that their accounts be associated with various agencies. The association request must come from a VAv3 administrator of the requesting agency. As the VAv3 administrator, simply contact the Office of EMS requesting that a user's account be associated with their agency, and we will perform that action. You will need to provide the user's existing VAv3 account ID and the user certification number for verification purposes. The next menu option is Information. This is where detailed information about your agency is stored. Please note that the Office of EMS has set up the agency information based on what was found in VPHIB. As is listed on the agency checklist, it is very important that you review all of the information that was entered in for your agency. If you discover any mistakes, inaccuracies, or missing information, be sure that you correct those as soon as possible. We'll go through how the Agency Information section works using our sample agency. The Details tab contains all of the pertinent information for an agency. Some of these are state ID number, billing status, primary type of service, and level of service, just to name a few. There are also items that you can add, such as National Provider Identifier or Fire Department ID numbers served. Let's take a look at how these work by entering in an NPI number. Please note that if your agency entered an NPI number into VPHIB, the Office of EMS has transferred that number over to your agency information in VAv3. Once you access your own agency, you will need to review that number for accuracy. First, click Add Entry. Now, enter in the NPI number in the space provided. For this example, we'll make one up. Once the NPI number has been entered in, click on the check mark to save the entry. If you notice an error in the entry, click on the pencil icon to edit the entry. If the Add Entry button is clicked in error like this, clicking on this symbol will remove the blank entry. If an entry is saved in error, click on the entry to highlight or select it. Now click the Delete button. When the second prompt comes up asking if you are sure, click OK to delete the entry or cancel if it was done by mistake. The Fire Department ID Numbers Served section works exactly the same way. The next tab is the Service Area tab. You can use this to define your service area by either county, census tract, and/or zip code. First, select New to create the entry, or choose Virginia to access what has already been set up. Notice that there are 4 sections on this screen. If setting up a new entry, click on the down arrow and choose Virginia. Now the choices for the other 3 sections are specifically for Virginia. Each section functions the same way, so we'll focus on the county section for this example. The object is to move the needed items from the left box over to the right box by making choices and clicking on the buttons between the boxes. The top button in each section will move all the items from the left box to the right box. Likewise, the bottom button in each section will move all of the items from the right box to the left box. The second and third buttons move items either one at a time or by groups in between the boxes. Let me illustrate. If I click on one item and then click the second button, then that one item moves over to the right. If I click on that same item and click the third button, then that one item moves back to the left. By pressing and holding the Control key on the keyboard and using the left mouse button, I can select multiple items. Once selected, I can click on the second button and move the entire group of items over. If I need to move several items back to the left, but not everything, I can use the same process of selecting and use the third button down to move the group of items back to the left. You can also use the keyboard to help search for items. To illustrate this, I'll use the postal code section. Simply click in the box and type in the item that you're looking for. For this example, I'll enter in 23059. Notice how the list moves down to that specific one. Once the item is located, you can move it over using the buttons as we described earlier. Each of the sections has this additional functionality. When you access your specific agency, you will see that this information, with the exception of the census tract, has been set up for you. You will need to verify and make any needed updates to this information. Once you have everything set, be sure to select Save before leaving this screen. Click on the back button to return to the agency information screen. Statistical year info is another area under agency information that you may choose to use. Simply select New and fill in the blanks. Normally this information would be filled in during the month of January for the previous year. If you choose to enter information here, be sure to select Save before closing the screen. As this was the last item to view regarding agency information, we'll click on the logo to return to the home screen. The next menu option to look at under the agency name is Users. This is used to view and work with existing user accounts or to create new user accounts. The filters shown in the gray area at the top of this screen we'll go over in a moment. To set up a new user, select New. This opens the user information screen. Notice that there are several tabs located across the screen labeled Demographics, Certifications, Employment, Account Details, and Records. Let's go over each of these as we set up a new fictitious account. Under the Demographics tab, we can set up personal information for the user, such as first name, last name, date of birth, and address, just to name a few. All of the fields are self-explanatory as to what information is needed. Notice that some fields are outlined in red. This indicates that they are required. As version 3 is fully implemented over the next several months, other fields may be required in the future, so it is important to fill out these fields as completely as possible. For our fictitious example, we're going to fill out the following: first name, last name, date of birth, and driver's license number. Notice here in the motor vehicle license type, we can select several different types. In other words, this is a multi-select box. To use this, just hold down the Control key on your keyboard and click the selections you want. If you click one by mistake, just click it again while still holding down the Control key to deselect it. The Foreign Language Ability box is also a multi-select field. Normally, anytime you see a field that looks like either of these, it is a multi-select field. When I entered in the date of birth, I simply clicked in the field and typed in 01/01/1970 using my keyboard. However, notice that by clicking in the field, there are a few other options available. These may be of benefit to you if you're using a tablet or touchscreen device. The first option is this X. By selecting this, I can clear the date and start over again. The up and down arrows allow me to adjust the selected date item, such as month, day, and/or year, either higher or lower. Notice that I can select the month and click on either arrow to choose the desired month. When I select the day, I can do the same thing. Even when I select the year and select either arrow, it starts with the current year, and then, using the arrows, I can change the date accordingly. If I click on this down arrow, a calendar view comes up. From this view, I can select this down arrow and choose a different month if needed. I can also scroll up or down to select a different year. Use these buttons to move by month. This button simply selects the current date and closes the date screen. Once you have the date that you need up on the screen, simply click on it and the field is filled in. Again, this may be of benefit when using tablets or touchscreen devices. Let's also enter in the address for this person. We'll use the Set from Postal Code button to fill in city and state. This is the same type of functionality that was used in version 2. Just type in the zip code, and then click on the Set from Postal Code button. Once the list of locations come up, select the one you want, and click OK. At the bottom of this window, we can add phone numbers and email addresses. Let's look at both of these, and I'll point out where they work the same and how they are different. To add phone numbers, click on the Add Entry button. Enter in the phone number needed. Choose the type from the drop-down list of choices, and click on the check mark to save the entry. Repeat this process for any other phone numbers that you need to add for this user. If you find that you need to change an entry, the pencil icon will allow you to make edits. If more than one number is entered, you can mark any entry as the primary phone number by clicking the box under Is Primary. If you click the Add Entry button in error, click on this icon to remove it. To delete an entry, simply click on the line to select it, choose Delete, and choose OK when prompted to confirm that you want to delete this entry. If the user ever changes numbers, but you want to keep a record of previous ones, simply click on the pencil icon to edit the entry in question and uncheck the active box under Status. Adding email addresses works the same as adding phone numbers with a couple of differences. Under Type, you have a choice of personal or work. And under Notifications, you have a box that you can either uncheck or leave as checked. As in version 2, the Notifications box indicates if emails sent by the Office of EMS will be sent to the user. If you prefer that the user not be included on those communications, you will need to uncheck this box. Perhaps you only want your officers and those individuals with admin access to receive these. The choice is entirely up to you. As you enter in information under each tab, you can select the Save option to save your work. It's not required to click the Save option after each tab, but it can save you some work should you get interrupted and the system logs you out, or if you lose your network connection. Now, let's look at the Certification tab. Under the Certifications tab, National Registry, State Licensure, Agency Licensure, and Educational information is entered here. Again, as with other screens that we have reviewed, the description of what is needed for each field is very self-evident. The only section that currently must be set up is the State Licensure Group section. However, you should enter in as much information as is available to cover any future requirements. If the State Licensure Group information is left blank, then the user will not be able to be selected when creating an incident. If you choose to record educational information, please note that the degree subject field of study selections are multi-select and works as the others we have previously discussed. For our fictitious example, we will enter in the following information: State Licensure ID, State Licensure Level, Certification Date, and Expiration Date. This symbol is called an information bubble. When you hover the mouse over this symbol, additional information about the field appears. When you move the mouse off of this symbol, the information disappears. The next tab to look at is the Employment tab. The Employment tab is where you enter in specific agency information for this user. This is also where you will determine if the user will show up in the Electronic Patient Care Report form. Notice that there is a yes and no option for this permission. Currently, the default setting is no, so you will have to click on yes to enable it. If both buttons are grayed out, recheck the Certification tab and verify that the state licensure information has been filled in. Agency number is entered in the Agency ID number field, and if you choose to, you can enter in additional information such as badge number and hire date, just to name a few. On the right side of the window, you can select employment status such as full-time, part-time, volunteer, or neither. The primary job role such as patient care provider for this individual can be selected from the drop-down list. The Other Job Responsibilities section is a multi-select list, so you can choose more than one item by using the Control key on your keyboard, as we have done on other multi-select fields. Since each agency should have at least one primary contact, you can make that selection by simply clicking Yes next to Primary Contact under the appropriate account. Again, No is selected by default. As with the other tabs, fill in as much information as is available, even if it's not a requirement. If you are not sure if something is required or not, refer to Virginia's VAv3 Data Dictionary for a complete listing of required information. Now, let's look at the Accounts Detail tab. This tab is where the username, permission group, and temporary password are set up. First, enter in the username. We'll use A. Smith for this example. Most agencies use first initial and last name. However, in some cases that combination may have already been used. For example, A. Smith may have previously been used for Arnold Smith, and now you have Andy Smith joining your agency. You can always use something more unique, such as a username of Andy Smith, or A. Smith 1220 being the month and day the individual joined your agency. It's entirely up to you as to what you create for a username. Just remember that it should be something relatively easy for the user to remember. Here we see the password requirements. As listed, each password needs to be at least 5 characters long, contain a number, an uppercase letter, and a special character, such as an asterisk or a percent symbol. Passwords also cannot match any one of the last 10 passwords created for this account and cannot match the username. When you enter in the temporary password, you will need to enter it in twice for verification purposes, as I am doing here. Notice that the Require Reset option is automatically checked by default and cannot be unchecked. This option forces the user to change their password when they log in for the first time. Once we have this account set up, we will review that process. Next, we need to assign a permission group to this account. This will determine what access this user has when logging into the system. For this account, we are going to select EMS Agency Staff. For agency status, the Active option is selected by default. We'll look at inactivating an account in just a moment. The final 2 items indicate that the account is active across the system and is not currently locked out. We'll go over the Login Access option in just a few minutes. The information bubbles next to each item will give you additional information. The last tab available under User Information is the Records tab. Here, you can collect and store immunization status information for each user if you choose to do so. First, click on the Add Entry button to expand the field. Next, click on the down arrow to see a list of possible choices and click on the needed selection. Now, enter in the year the user was immunized for this item. Finally, click on the check mark to save the entry. Repeat this process to add any additional information. This item has the same options for save, edit, and cancel that we have seen earlier in this presentation. Once everything has been entered in for this user, select the Save option at the top right corner of the window. Now let's look at some of the features on the user screen. Here you can search on an individual's last or first name. For example, I can type in Andy and the system will automatically narrow down the list of users shown to only those individuals with a first or last name of Andy. When I cleared the word Andy from the search field, the screen returns to the complete list of users. To go to the next page of the user screen, select the right arrow button found here. Clicking on the left button goes back to the previous page. This gray area contains filter options that can be used to narrow the list of users by groups. The ones shown are the most commonly used filters. Here, the list can be narrowed down by permission group, active or inactive agency status, or if the user will or will not be shown in the run form. Note the total number of users being shown. Now I'll change the permission group to EMS agency staff. See how the total number of users has changed? You will also see that only EMS agency staff is shown in the permissions group column. Now I'll change it back by unchecking EMS agency staff. The agency status and show in EMS run form filters work by clicking on the appropriate button. Under this plus sign there are additional filters available. These filters, which function the same as the others, will allow the list to be narrowed even further. Click on the pen icon to restore the column headings and the New button, should you want to create a new account. Login access is used to see if accounts have been locked out or not. If you want to only view users that are locked out of the system, simply change this to No, and the list of users will be filtered to only those accounts that are locked. Currently, there are only two ways an account can get locked out. Either the user attempts to log in with an incorrect password 10 times, or the user is not logged into the system for a preset length of time which is currently set to 90 days. To illustrate this, we will change the login access option to No and see if we have any accounts that are currently locked out. Yes, here are several accounts that are locked out. We'll use the demo account to demonstrate how to unlock an account. To correct this, we need to select the account and go to the Accounts Details tab. Notice that we have a Yes and No button next to Login Access. Simply click on Yes to unlock the account. Note that the buttons disappear. If needed, you can take this opportunity to enter in a new temporary password for this user, as we did when we created our A. Smith account. Once you have finished, don't forget to select Save. Now we'll click on the Back button and check out another feature. Let's see how to inactivate an account by bringing up the demo account one more time. Once the user information screen comes up, we'll once again go to the Account Details tab. To inactivate an account, simply click on this Inactive button. Then click on Save. Notice that the buttons disappear. As is the case with VPHIB, VAv3 administrators can deactivate accounts but not reactivate them. If an account needs to be reactivated, contact us at the Office of EMS and we'll perform this task. Now let's go back and look at how to modify the permissions of a user. Currently, administrators can only modify the permissions of a user that is also set up as an agency administrator. Check back here periodically to see if and when the functionality to adjust other permission groups has been added. First, I'll search for an agency administrator account that was previously set up. Now I'll select that account. Once the user information screen comes up, I'll choose the Permission Objects tab. It is important to note that currently this tab only appears after a user account has been set up and saved. In this field, you can search for specific permissions. For example, I'll type in Records and the screen selections will be narrowed down to only those selections that contain a permission item called Records. When I clear this out, the screen goes back to its original state. The column heading under each section defines what level of permission the user has. Hidden indicates that the user cannot see the particular item. Read indicates that the user can only view items. Edit indicates that the user can view and make changes to those items. Add indicates that the user can view, make changes to those items, as well as add new ones. Full indicates that the user has unrestricted access to the particular item. Other sections may have different or fewer column headings depending on the functionality of the permission object. As you can see here, the ability to lock and/or unlock incidents is simply a yes or no item. In other words, yes means they can perform the function and no means they cannot. For sections that have these on and off buttons, please note that this cannot be changed. To make a change, simply click in the circle to change the permission level. For example, if this user is not going to be allowed to view other EMS incidents, simply choose the circle under Hidden to change the permission level. Notice that certain items or selections are grayed out. This indicates that they cannot be changed. For example, since all of the options to the right of facilities are grayed out, this permission object is locked to its default setting only. Notice how each item is divided into sections. By clicking here, you can collapse a section, and if you click here again, it will expand it. This also allows you to make the same changes to an entire section if you choose to. For example, if I click on Select All under Hidden, all of the items that I'm allowed to make changes to have been changed to Hidden. Even though this functionality exists, it is not recommended. We have noticed certain issues with this function and recommend that if any permission items need to be changed, they are done individually. Once you have made your modifications, be sure to select Save. So that you can see what the screen looks like when a user logs in for the first time, let's log in under the A. Smith account we created. At the sign-on screen, we'll enter in the organization ID of Virginia. Next, we'll enter in the username that we created, which was A. Smith. And finally, the temporary password. This is where the user will be prompted to change the password. You can also see that they are shown the same password requirement information that was shown earlier when the account was created. Once the user has entered in their existing password and their new password twice, they will be logged into the application. The next menu option is Configuration. Currently there are two options available here. First, we'll select Audit Tracking Reasons. This is used to define any audit tracking options and messages and/or reasons associated for creating, viewing, or updating incidents. Here you can see the three options that are available. These will be set to No by default, so you will need to determine which ones, if any, should be set to Yes. If you choose to set any or all of these to Yes, then the users will be prompted with the message you enter in each time they choose to create, view, or update an incident. To set up one of these, simply click on Yes, and then the box below will become available so that you can enter in the message. The information bubbles here will provide additional details. Under the More option, the ability to revert these messages back to an original state can be found. It is recommended that VAv3 administrators do not use this option, but rather make manual adjustments to their existing messages when required. If you do make any changes to these, be sure to select Save. Now, let's look at the next item under Configuration, which is Repeat Patients. This allows you to determine if the Repeat Patients option located on the electronic medical record form will function and how the patient information is collected. If the first option is set to No, users will receive a message that Repeat Patients has not been enabled for the agency when they select the Repeat Patients button on the EMR form. If you choose not to set this up, please let your providers and staff members know. This next option should be set to Yes if your agency uses a third-party vendor to import records and you want to have the Repeat Patients option available to be used if you need to update records. This third option should be set to Yes if your agency enters runs directly into VAv3 or your agency uses VAv3 field and you want to use the Repeat Patients functionality. The last field determines how far back to check for patient information when looking for repeat patients. Don't forget to check the information bubbles for additional information. For those agencies using VAv3 field, it is important to note that this feature currently only works when you access the EMR online. The offline functionality has not yet been added. Once it is, we will update this video and send out notifications. Now, let's look at Elite Field configuration. For those of you who use VAv3 field and also import EKG information, this will allow you to set up what will be collected and in some cases determine when to collect specific data. First, I'll click on EKG Monitor so that you can see the available selections. Under the EKG Settings tab, each choice listed is self-explanatory as to what is collected. All of these items are set to Yes by default, but as the VAv3 administrator, you do have the ability to set any or all of these to No if needed. The Vital Settings tab has similar functionality, with the only difference being that you can determine the values and points or time frame as to when a new record should be collected. Simply click on Yes and enter in a value if you wish to change the default. For those items that are already set to Yes, you can change those to No or update the value if you choose to. Under the More option, you have the ability to reset any changes made back to the default settings that have been created by the state. If you select this option, you will be prompted with the following warning message. However, as you can see, you can still select OK to view those settings. You just have to make sure that you do not select Save if you don't want to update your settings based on what was set up by the state. Finally, if you have made any changes that you want to implement, be sure to select Save before closing out this screen. The last option under this menu is Data Exchange. A quick note here. All VPHIB administrators in the current application have access to Data Exchange. However, if you are not currently using this in version 2, then most likely you will not need to use this in version 3. For those VPHIB administrators that are currently using this option, here's a brief description of what is currently available in version 3. The first item is Export History. When viewing Instance, you have the ability to select and export Instance when needed. Typically, this is done to send formatted data to third-party companies. This option will show a list of what files have been created and by whom. Here you can narrow down the list by export type. The date range will default to the last 7 days, but you can change this range by clicking into the field and entering in the required dates. The next option is Import History. This is where you can view a list of files that have been imported into VAv3. Typically, this is used by agencies that either have their own ImageTrend product or use another third-party product for reporting runs. As with Export History, this section will provide a list of items that have been imported based on allowed types and by specific date ranges. Import File is used by agencies that use a third-party vendor for reporting runs to Virginia by uploading a file into the system. To do this, click on Import File, choose the import type from the list of available types, select the Choose File button to select the data file to be imported, and click OK to upload the information. For those agencies currently using this method for reporting, check with your third-party software vendor to ensure that they can report NMSIS 3 data. For this video presentation, we're going to do a brief overview of how to look at existing incidents that have been previously entered into VAv3. Here we will select EMS under View Existing. This screen provides a list of the EMS incidents that have been entered into the system. As with version 2, individuals assigned the permission group of EMS agency user will only be able to view instances where they were listed on the crew manifest. Individuals with agency admin access typically can view all incidents. To select one of these records to view, simply double-click on the line to retrieve the information. If you are using a computer that has touchscreen capabilities, then you can tap on this arrow to accomplish the same task. As with the user screen, you can go to the next page of records by clicking on the right arrow as shown here and going back to the previous list of records by clicking on the left arrow button. For data exchange users, you can click on a record to export it as shown here. Or you can select Export All. Now I'll show you a different view of this screen. I'll narrow the list a bit to help illustrate what I am about to show. Just note that this is not something you need to do in order to change the view. Now that my list is smaller, notice that I can click on the column headings and sort the list. To change the sort order, click the same column header again. You can tell by this arrow if the information is sorted either ascending or descending. For those of you that have larger resolutions or smaller screens, your view of this can look different. To illustrate, I'll change the zoom on my browser to 125%. Notice how the look of the screen changes. Even though I no longer have column headings, I can still use the Order by drop-down list to choose what information I want to sort on. I can also choose to sort the information either descending or ascending by making that choice here. Smaller screens such as Toughbooks will typically always show this view of the incident screen. However, as I demonstrated here, you can manually adjust how this screen looks by changing the zoom on your browser window. So if your computer defaults to this screen one way and you prefer the other, simply adjust the zoom in your browser higher or lower. The choice is yours to make. To date, this is the only screen available in VAv3 that has this functionality. You can use this option to either lock or unlock runs. This symbol indicates that a record is locked. This is normally used as part of a QA process to prevent users from making changes or updates to records once they have been reviewed. As the VAv3 administrator, you can control who has this access. To lock a record or unlock a record that is locked, simply select the record in question and choose the appropriate button. For more information on how to enter in runs either directly into the system or by using the Elite Field Login option, please see the companion video titled VAv3 ePCR Overview. Under Resources, there are several options available to VAv3 administrators. Let's go through these one at a time. First, we have the Agency Locations option. This section covers a couple of different functions. First, this is where you will need to set up the address information for your agency. Let me illustrate. First, we'll click on New. Then we'll enter in the agency number. For this example, I'm going to use our training agency number of 5,000. Next, I'll enter in the training agency name. Now I'm going to choose EMS Agency Headquarters. Finally, I'm going to enter in the address, then enter in the zip code and use the Set from Postal Code option we discussed earlier and choose United States under Country. It is important that your agency headquarters be set up correctly. All incidents that are printed for your agency will get its address information from this. It is important to note that as of the date this video was created, the address information cannot be changed once the entry has been saved. ImageTrend is working on enhancing this. Once that has occurred, video updates will be released. You can also use this to set up any substations that your agency may have. The only difference in setting this up will be the agency location type. In the case of substations, you would select EMS Station under Agency Location Type. Notice the filter option here. Currently, it is set to show only active locations. If I click on this X, it clears the filter and will display both active and inactive locations. To add the filter back, click on this option and choose whichever option you are trying to narrow your search down by. It is important to know that when you set these filters, they go back to their default settings when you close out of the screen. In other words, if you clear the active filter and close the screen, when you come back into the screen, the active filter will be applied again. Anytime you see these options at the top of any screens, they all function the same way. Once a location has been created, you can go back into this location and add any phone number information if needed. Just click on New, enter in the phone number, choose the type, and click on the disk icon to save the entry. Other than the disk icon, this phone number field works exactly the same as the other fields previously discussed. Notice that on an inactive agency, there is a More option. When selected, we have the option to delete this location. Since version 3 is still new to all of us, the current recommendation is not to delete something so long as there is the ability to deactivate it. While something that has been inactivated can easily be reactivated by clicking the Yes button, when something is deleted, it is permanently gone. Yes, the item could be recreated, but typically other information that may have been previously connected with it may not automatically be reconnected. Since the goal is to make the item invisible to the general users, making the item inactive will address this quite well. The next menu item under Resources is Facilities. Let's check this out. This shows a listing of all facilities that have been entered into VAv3. Notice that there are Activate and Inactivate buttons available. What this allows you to do is limit the number of facilities that will show up on the patient care report form. For example, perhaps your agency will never transport a patient to Georgetown University. Just click on it to select it and click on the Inactivate button. Now, when your providers are working on a patient report form, Georgetown University will not be listed as a choice. You can do this with as many facilities as needed to create a more manageable list of facilities for the providers to choose from. You can always undo this if you find that you do need this facility listed. Remember, this only makes the facility inactive for your agency. The order column allows you to list facilities in a specific order. For example, suppose Georgetown University is the facility that your agency goes to the majority of the time. You can enter in a number 1 in the order field. This will cause Georgetown University to be the first facility your providers see when filling out a patient care report. Likewise, you can put other facilities in order by numbering them 2, 3, 4, and so forth. If you have a lot of facilities that you want to order, you may want to number them by 5, like 5, 10, 15, 20, and so forth. If you find that you need to insert one, you could easily use the number 12 to put the facility in between 10 and 15. If you numbered everything by 1s and found an error, then you would have to renumber everything. Just a thought. Be sure to click on the Save button before closing out this screen. The next option is Leave of Absence Reasons. Here you can enter in various leave of absence reasons that you want to record. Our recommendation is to view the existing ones you have set up in version 2 and duplicate those here in version 3. Creating this is very easy. Click on New, enter in the order if needed, then enter in the description. Click on the Active box to make it active, and click OK to save the entry. Click on the Edit box to change an existing entry if needed. The Medical Devices section allows an agency to enter in data about medical devices that they have. It is strictly for inventory purposes only. Its use is quite easy. Click on New to open up the Medical Device entry screen. Each field is labeled as to what is needed, and the type field is another multi-select field. Once you have entered in the appropriate information, be sure to click on Save. The next menu item under Resources is Shifts. This gives you the ability to create shifts that can be assigned to crews and units on the run form. If you previously used shifts in version 2, then you can duplicate those shifts here. To set up a shift, click on New and enter in the name and the description. As you can see here, all new shifts created are set to active by default. Once you have entered in your information, don't forget to select Save. Our next item is Signatures. Under Signatures, the same information that was set up in version 2 under Run Forms, EMS Form Resources will be found here. Here you can see the default signatures that have been created. Currently, administrators can only activate or inactivate selections by selecting the signature in question and choosing the appropriate button, like this. Under the More option, administrators have the ability to see the default language setting, which is currently English. Even though it appears that administrators can deactivate or edit this, the system will not allow this to be performed since at least one default language setting is required. The next menu item to review is Supporting Agencies and Units. This option allows you to set up other agencies outside of those EMS licensed agencies that sometimes will provide assistance. An example of this could be local law enforcement. When these are set up, they can also be documented on the run form. In version 2, these were handled in the section labeled Other EMS Agencies at Scene and First EMS Unit Arriving. If you choose to, you can go into VPHIB, look up any agencies or units that may have been added there, and set those up here. As you can see here, when the licensed agencies were added to VAv3, the current functionality of the application automatically loaded them into this section in an active state. Since this information will also be shown on the run form, it is recommended that you set any agencies that normally would not offer assistance to inactive. This will help make the list on the run form more manageable. To accomplish this, I'll give a quick demonstration on the best way to proceed given the current functionality in the application. First, go to the Status column and click on Select All under Inactive. This will change all of the agencies listed on that page to inactive. Then, click on Save, and this will save page 1. Do this on each page until all of the agencies that have been pre-entered are set to inactive. Now, in the search field, enter in the name of one of the counties that would on occasion assist your agency. In my example, I'm going to use Pittsylvania County. Notice that when I type this in, the list now only shows the agencies in Pittsylvania County. We're recommending this approach since the agencies in VAv3 are grouped internally by county. While this may not be 100% accurate, it should provide you with a list that is very close. Now I have two choices. I can choose to make only certain agency names available on the run form by selecting this green radio button, or I can choose Select All under Active to make all of these agency names available. Once you have the page set the way you want it, select Save, and then repeat the process for any other counties you may need. After these have been completed, then you can go back and add any non-EMS licensed agencies. To set up a supporting agency, click on New. You can see that the information needed is pretty basic. On the right side, you can choose if the supporting agency is either one that can be on scene with your agency, or if they offer transport support, or both. Once this is filled in, select Save. If after saving you need to change an entry that you create, just double-click the agency name from the list and the information screen will come up allowing you to make edits. It's important to note that the licensed entries cannot be changed. Looking at this node, you will see that you can also set the ordering of these just like we did with the facilities. Click on the header on the first or second columns like this, and you will see the order field appear. Once you have set the order, click on the header again to close it. As with the other items we have looked at previously, this is to help the provider by putting the most used choices at the top of the list when filling out this information on the run form. The filter option for this section is located here. When I click on it, you can see that there are several different ways to filter your view. As with the other filter options we looked at earlier, these choices will revert back to their default settings once you close out of this screen. If you recall, this menu option was called Supporting Agencies and Units. Let's see how the application has been designed to access the units information from this screen. Notice that there is a button labeled Edit Supporting Units. Also notice the name of the screen is Supporting Agencies. If we click on the button labeled Edit Supporting Units, notice that the screen name and the button changes. Now the button is labeled Edit Supporting Agencies and the screen name is Supporting Units. To add any supporting units, click on New, fill in the information needed, and click on Save. As noted, you can set the ordering in the same manner as we did on the Supporting Agencies screen by clicking on the first arriving unit header. Also, you can see that the filter option for this section is located here. Now let's look at Vehicles and Call Signs. The Vehicles and Call Signs screen is designed just like the Support Agencies and Units, as both of these menus have been combined into one. To set up a new or existing vehicle, click on New to open up the Vehicle Information window and fill in the blanks. Notice that in the default call sign field, you can click on the down arrow to make a selection, or you can select Create and create one directly from this screen. As with the other windows we've looked at before, don't forget to click Save after entering in the information. If you need to edit an entry here, just double-click it. To edit or create call signs, click on the Edit Call Signs button to switch to the call signs screen. Click New, fill in the information, and click on the disk icon to save the entry. Again, all of the basic options on this screen function the same as the screens we have already looked at. The final option under Resources is Zones and Districts. Agencies can use this to determine if response times are being met through various zones within their coverage area. This is entirely optional. To create this, click on New and fill in the blanks. Typically, an agency will divide their coverage area into several zones and then determine what their target response time should be for each. Then, once the reporting functionality has been added, you would be able to run reports and see how your agency is meeting those goals. If you have previously used this in version 2, then you can set up the same thing here in version 3. Currently, VAv3 administrators do not have any security options listed within the Tools menu. Should this change in the future, this video will be updated. The last menu option to look at is Community. This is where you can access general information on the application. The first item we have here is labeled Blog. If you have ever used a blog before, then you are familiar with what this is. For those of you that are not, it's basically an online way to share ideas and comment on items. The blog is pretty new and not a lot of people are currently using it. If you're interested, you will need to contact ImageTrend directly in order to obtain a username and password. Help University is the online help system. The one for version 3 is much more user-friendly than the previous one. Here we have the contents. The next tab is used to search on specific words. The last tab is a glossary of terms. In the top search, you have the option to search on words or phrases, and you can narrow your search down by these choices. When you see screen inserts in the Help section, just click on those to enlarge it. Click on it again to reduce it. Looking at this note option, click on the down arrow to open up the note. Click it again to close it. Anytime you see a line with a down arrow icon, this indicates that there is additional information available. There is something else here that I want to bring to your attention. In the search box, I am going to type in Release. Now I am going to select the release from October. Notice this selection labeled Watch the Movie. ImageTrend has started releasing videos that discuss the changes for software updates. While not all of these may apply to you, this is a good resource to check when a software update has been released. FAQ, or Frequently Asked Questions, is another resource available under Community. Since this application is still very new, the current FAQs are more related to Nemesis and the first stages of this new application. As time goes on, ImageTrend will be adding more information here. User voice can be used to request enhancements to the application. Once everything has settled down on this implementation, perhaps you'll notice something that you wish the system did. You can use user voice to make that recommendation directly to ImageTrend. Keep in mind that when you put in this type of request, it's best to include exact details on what you want the application to do and what the benefit will be when this functionality has been added. The last option here is Support Suite. This option creates tickets directly to ImageTrend. As a note, all users of VAv3 should still direct any support issues to the Office of EMS. Under Name, there are two options. The first one, called Account, is only available to users with administrator privileges. This option brings up another view of your account. If you need to update your account information, we recommend going to the Users option under the Agency menu as we discussed earlier when setting up the Andy Smith account and make any changes there. To log out of the system, click on Log Out. If you do click the X in the upper right corner to close the screen, this will also close out the application. There have been 2 updates to the application that we want to let you know about. The first one is in regards to the instance list. You now have the ability to change the columns that are displayed here. To illustrate, we'll select More and choose Select Columns. The darker items show the columns that are currently displayed, and the lighter items are the additional items that can be displayed. If I want to remove something, I can click on any of these X's and the item will be removed. If I want to add one of these other items, such as patient initials, I can click on that item and it moves into the upper box. Now I'll click OK and you can see that it has been added as the last column. You can also move columns to a different location. For example, notice that instant number is currently displayed here, but you decide that you would prefer to have it be the first column. All that you need to do is go back to Select Columns under More and move it to the first position. Once you click OK, you can see that instant number has been moved. All of the columns can be moved, added, or removed in this manner. Keep one thing in mind. If you add a lot more columns to the screen, then your display may change to the other layout that we saw earlier when I changed the browser zoom to 125%. Any changes that you make here only affect your view of this screen. It will not affect other users. You also have the ability to narrow the list of incidents by the unit notified date range. For example, using my keyboard, I'll enter in a date range of 03/15/2015 to 03/15/2015, and this will narrow the list to just incidents that occurred within that date range. I could have just as easily entered in a longer date range if that is what I needed. The second update has to do with the Employment tab found in the Users section. Under the Employment tab, Leave of Absence has been added. This will allow you to document leave of absence reasons for individual users. It's easy to use. Click on New and fill in the blanks. The list of reasons shown here will come from the list of leave of absence reasons that you set up in the system for your agency. This Notes field is a free text field, so you can type in any notes needed for reference later. Once you have everything filled in, be sure to select Save. If a leave of absence reason is added in error, simply select the record in question and you can choose Delete. Well, that brings us to the end of this video presentation. As more features are added, we'll send out additional videos that go over the new functionality, as well as adding information to this presentation. When that occurs, we'll send out notifications. As you begin to work with version 3 and train your staff, please do not hesitate to contact us at the Office of EMS for any questions or assistance you may need. You can reach us by using the contact information shown on the screen. Thanks for taking the time to view this video, and we hope you have a pleasant day.